let's start not with the people who start the startup, but like the employees. Is it a good for me to work for a startup or not? What would you say? What was your...
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking just about the money, then it's probably not a great thing to work for a startup. It's the average employee of a startup is earning, kind of about 6% less initially. If you look at somebody who has the same kind of background, working in the same industry, but going to a large established employer, the person who goes to a startup is typically earning a little bit less. And in the long run, they actually earn quite a bit less, depending on how you're looking at it. They might earn anywhere, up to sort of 10, 12% less over, I call it the lifetime, but really we're talking over a 10-year period. Okay. I think it's worthwhile to also understand a little bit about, well, why is it that they're earning less? And we've did a little bit of research and trying to understand what were in some sense, the sources of the penalties. And one of the biggest sources of the penalties is that, the average startup fails, doesn't last forever. It maybe makes it for 3-4 years. And when it fails, the employees have to go and find another job. And where they really seem to kind of lose out is that when they find that next job, they're usually taking either a little bit of a pay cut or, they're earning about the same amount as they earned in their prior job. Whereas somebody who was working that whole time at a large established employer, is probably accumulating experience, maybe getting promoted. They're actually getting raises over time. So it's not that they're actually, sort of seeing a decrease in their income, but relative to somebody who worked at, a job continuously, they typically are earning less.
Yeah, that's an interesting finding. I would have, just from a gut feeling, thought that for the corporate, it would be interesting to have people that worked in startups, because I think they're the typical, more flexible, very, very ready to work a lot, to work hard, and flexible in their thinking, maybe not just in one department, but like connecting the dots. I would have thought that would be worth money to pay them a bit more to get them on their team. So that's not how it's played out for these people, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I mean, I think for entrepreneurs, for the founders, that does sort of happen. If you looked at, this isn't really my own paper, but if you look at other people who've done research on startup founders and what happens to them, even when they go back to an employer, I think a lot of times employers consider that experience very relevant for somebody who's going to enter the managerial ranks, right? Somebody who now understands how to manage people, knows a lot of different functions of the organizations. But the thing about, being, a more typical employee in a large firm is large firms usually have employees that are very specialized, right? They want people that are really good at some particular activity. And that's not what you develop as skills in a startup. In a startup, you learn how to do a little bit of everything. You're not really an expert in any one, but a little bit of everything.
Trades. Yeah,
exactly. And so when you then are going back to work for these larger employees, it's hard for them to make use of the type of experience, the type of human capital that you built.
Yeah, it's like you don't fit as well as a cog into the machine anymore, or like you have to be built into it and trained for it more to get into the right part of the machine, in comparison with someone who's been there from the get-go, right after school or after the degree. You've been in it, worked years and years and years, maybe even if perfectly in the same company, to learn all in and outs. Okay, that's something I can see. Absolutely interesting. If you like this clip, watch another one. And if you want to see the whole interview, click here.